and welcome back to the 411 podcast. So on today's episode, I'm actually going to be co-hosting with someone new. Welcome, Kim.
Hello guys.
So in this episode, we will be talking about how to pivot and how to practically change your life. This is obviously such an important conversation, and here to share all his story and expertise on this is Ryan Stevens, a mindset and accountability coach.
Thank you for having me.
So I think we should dive right into the real questions out here that we all want to really listen to and learn about and educate ourselves on. Ryan, could you share us your story?
Okay, so if you want, I'll start from the beginning.
Go for it.
Chronological order. So when I was in school, I went to a local school, Daniel James, which is just up in the Panlan area of Swansea, and I would say in the first year or two, I was a bit of a nerd, a bit of a geek. I was into Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, and I had a couple of group of friends, but I sort of over the course of about 2 years after that, I was probably picked on a little bit and stuff like that. And then from around year 9 up to year 11, so the final 2.5, 3 years of school, I would say bullied quite a bit. Now, it was banter, but when banter gets to the point where you don't want to wake up and go to school the next day, and I had actually had a couple of fights with people and stuff as well, because they were, just like slap me in the head or something, and then it would just escalate. That was a very challenging time, and I think that left a lot of sort of mental scars, I like to call them. So low self-confidence, low self-esteem, lack of self-worth. And also not just within myself in terms of how I viewed myself, but also when I would go out and try and do something, that would project in terms of I can't do that, I'm not able to do that, I haven't got the skill, I haven't got that. Do you know what I mean? Those sorts of things would probably stem from that bullying. But when I left school, I made a decision. I thought, okay, I'm going to college. Now, some of the people I was in school with are going to be there, but typically it's not going to be the ones who were doing the bullying. So I thought, I can reinvent, I can be somebody new. What I will say, just as a point, is don't always try and be somebody new, just figure out who you really are and be that person. But for me, I was like, I can be who I want now. I can put all that behind today. I'm not going to get called names and this and that, so I can put my foot down initially and make sure that I don't get to that stage again. So I went to college, I did a couple of different qualifications, mechanical engineering, still to this day can't tell you what it was, I passed it, just about, but I knew it was not something I wanted to do long term. Did business studies for a little bit as well, that felt a little bit more right, but then I think it was about the third year when I was in college, I went in to get my results and things like that. And somebody offered me this pilot scheme, which was the Entrepreneurship Academy of Wales. I loved it. It was one of the best years of my life, definitely, because for the first time, I found something I was good at, and I was being creative, coming up with ideas, working it out and thinking, actually, no, not that idea, and then going on to something else. And I had people to bounce it off for the first time in my life as well, and I thought, oh my God, I'm actually starting to meet people here who are on my wavelength. Off the back of that course, I set up a tattoo studio, so I've got a few tattoos. I was only 19 at this point as well, so prior to doing that, nobody in my family had ever set up a business, none of my friends had, so it was a very obscure concept for them to kind of wrap their head around, same as me. But I went to one of my mates' houses actually, and I'm still friends with these guys. They're great guys, but on this particular night, I think, we were all having a couple of drinks, we were playing poker, and they said to me, they were talking about football and whatever, and I was literally just pouring out all this stuff about the business, and we're setting it up, and we're going to do this, and it's going to be great, you know, really excited about the project. And I pretty much got laughed out of the house, you know, they just couldn't see how it was going to work, and, you know, were quite negative about it. And I walked out of that house nearly crying, you know, because I felt really deflated, kind of took me back to when I was in school, you know, those sorts of feelings I experienced. And I spoke to my business partner, so the one I was setting up with, and I said about it, and I just kind of decided, you know what, no, I'm not going to listen to them, because if you speak to somebody who knows about diamonds, or like, let's say you speak to a diamond merchant, okay, or whatever you call them, but you're asking them about how to build a house, they're not going to be able to tell you how. Likewise, if you ask a builder about matters of diamonds, they're not going to know what diamonds are good and what is a diamond and what isn't. So I thought, the guys that I've been speaking to here, they've never set up a business. Maybe their family have, I don't know, but in most instances not. So I thought, I know more about entrepreneurship and business because I've studied it. So I thought that gives me an advantage, and I just thought, for the first time in my life probably that I can recall, I actually put faith in my own knowledge and I just went for it. 2 weeks later, we secured a £6,000 grant, £6,000 loan, and then we had a £6,000 grant as well to pay off the loan, which was really nice. And then we had the premises 2 weeks after that, and then another 2 weeks later, some of the same guys who were knocking it were actually asking for a discount on tattoos, which was cool. But that taught me a really valuable lesson, pretty much, to put stock in yourself, because you've got to do that. If you don't put stock in yourself, you will have people every now and again who will put faith in you, but you've got to put it in yourself first. And I think that carries you through, especially when, you know, you're going through major change or doing something quite, you know, significant in your life, like setting up a business, for example. So yeah, I did that, ran it for 2.5 years. It was great initially. It was good fun initially, but then the cracks started to show. Me and my business partner, you know, constantly having arguments. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the business as well, and I fell into a really low state of, low mental state. I'm cautious to say depression, because I've met people and worked with people who have had, you know, severe depression, and I'd like to say that I never got to, you know, a really, really low point where I couldn't get out of bed, but at the same time I was in a really low state. It felt like there was a big dark cloud looming over me and I couldn't really see which direction to go in. So it was like that for a good couple of months, and I just hated every minute of it. Felt like I was on autopilot, just driving to and from the business, and I didn't feel like I had any self-worth in that business either. I just kind of felt like I was there, existing, even though I'd been a major part in actually setting it up and the day-to-day running of it as well. But pretty much when I knew that they were going to go elsewhere and set up another business, you know, from that, I just thought, what do I do here? I'm going to be seen as a failure, so there's a lot of egoic stuff going on. I'm going to lose loads of money, I'm going to end up in debt, you know, and I'd seen my parents struggling for money when I was growing up. I'd seen, you know, they had debt in their lives, and I think that was a major issue for me. So I was like, I don't want to be like that. So what that drove me to do was to sell drugs. So I started selling cocaine for only a short period, for probably around 3 months. But the way I looked at that was, it's a contingency for when the business, you know, goes to pot or whatever you want to call it, goes down the drain, and they eventually leave, rather than, you know, well, I thought I'm going to have some money aside or whatever, that it's not going to be so bad. If I actually sat there and worked it out, it wouldn't have been that bad. It was just the scenario, the picture I painted in my head was going to be a million times worse, and I think we all do that. I think we all paint this picture of what's going to happen in the future, and we make it out to be a lot worse than what it ends up being. So that's pretty much what I did, and, you know, like I said, I was only doing it for a short period of time. I actually ended up walking out of the business, got a job in Admiral, and for the first time in years I was like, oh my god, I'm actually around like really positive people and stuff, and they're just, you know, they're normal people, but it was because of the contrast of the situation I'd been in, and I thought, oh my god, like, I didn't realise how low I'd actually got. And I started to realise, and I was only in Admiral for a couple of weeks before I actually got caught for selling drugs, and I had every intention of just stopping as well. So whatever I had in me, I was planning on getting rid of it, and that was it. And I told myself that, and I would have stuck to it. but I ended up getting caught, and it is a blessing, because even though I wouldn't have carried it on and I would have gone off and done other stuff, the life lessons that I learned from that experience were second to none, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So I got caught, I ended up going to prison 4 weeks later, and I had a 28-month sentence, so 2 years, 4 months, and I actually...
And you were 21 at this point, weren't you?
21, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was young.
Yeah.
And I spent 9 months inside, with another 5 months then with a little home detention curfew thing on me. So the experience in itself, I mean, day one walking in there was really challenging, as you can imagine, you know. So seeing my parents crying, you know, in the stand, seeing my mates, you know, all in tears as well, and knowing that, okay, yeah, I've messed up here. But as soon as they actually sentenced me and they took me downstairs, as soon as I got through the door, they take you kind of underneath, and it almost felt as if somebody had taken like a 60-kilo backpack off my shoulders. I kind of went, and the guy kind of looked at me and he was like, "You alright?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I feel okay actually, and it was quite surprising, because the way I think I looked at it in that moment and you know, on the first night was, yeah, I'm in a really crappy position here, but I thought, this is one day closer to the rest of my life. This is one day closer to whatever I plan on doing and want to do with my future. I'm creeping towards it.
Yeah.
And every day I go to sleep and wake up, I'm one day closer to that. That's kind of how I looked at it. But yeah, it was like a tough experience, and you know, I learned from it significantly. I met one of my best friends there, so I'm actually the godfather to his children now. He was in, you know, kind of didn't deserve to be there for, you know, for what he'd done, but again, he's turned his life around considerably, and he's actually runs his own business now. He's got 2 children, he's engaged and stuff, so you know, it's really nice to see those sorts of positive changes. And then yeah, since then I've worked in a load of different roles. I set up another business when I came out, so I've been 22, 23, yeah, maybe 20, no, later than that, 2017, so however old I was then, maybe 25 actually. I set up a shop called Better Gentleman, so I was down in Carmarthen, had that for around a year. Then I set up a food delivery franchise, online like fashion website as well for a little while. But all of those things had one thing in common: I didn't really have like a values aligned to them. I was purely doing them just because I found an interest in it to an extent and wanted to earn money and you know, have a business. But I started to discover that. So what I've done in recent years now is start to look inward and think, okay, what do I value? What am I passionate about? What am I interested in? And then if things don't match up to those values and those passions, I don't engage in it. You know, because those businesses weren't successful. You know, the shop lasted about a year, the website lasted 6 months, the food delivery franchise was like a month because I hated it. So I really didn't enjoy that. But yeah, I think you just got to try things out like that, and just to figure out what you don't like. Because once you know what you don't like, you can start to look at the things you do. It's kind of led me on to doing the stuff I've done in recent years. So I work for Swansea University, helping people to set up businesses, and I left that job in lockdown to be mindset and accountability coach, which is what I do now. So I work from a laptop, work from where I want pretty much. I meet people in person. I also do it in group sessions or online, and it's all about just helping people get from wherever they are right now into a better place than they were before. And that's like my one thing. As long as you know, they're 1% better than when I found them, you know, that's a mission accomplished for me. But yeah, I do a couple of other different things as well, which we can get into if you want. So I run 2 communities and yeah, do a range of other things. But that's kind of my story up to date. So
wow,
yeah.
wow.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Before we go a lot more into what you do now and you know the stuff that you've learned from that, we're really keen on understanding, because I think you did touch on it briefly, that first night you were in prison is when that something sparked in you. But what exactly was it for you even before, when you decided to leave, you know, the selling of the drugs, all of that? What was it that sort of sparked that one thing that made you think, okay, do you know what? If I keep on going this way, I'm not going to end up being wherever I want to be, or whatever. What exactly was that one thing for you, do you think?
the main thing that comes to mind for me really is that it wasn't who I am, and even back then I knew full well that what I was engaging in, what I was doing, was not who I was, and it wasn't what I was closely aligned with. Like, some of my core values, which I've known for years, really is, I love helping people, love lifting people up, motivating others to do better in their own lives, and creating an impact, positive impact. What I was doing was none of those things. It didn't align to any of those values. So I knew back then that was not something I was going to do forever. And I actually, I think when you're doing things that don't align with you and they don't, you start to mold into this new person. And I think people can almost begin to despise themselves, or they can begin to at least not like them, the person that they're becoming. And a lot of the time it's just through the things that we're engaging in. And I think as soon as you know that something's not for you and it's not serving you, either it's a relationship, whether it's a job, either it's the things that you're doing day to day, it could be a hobby. If you're playing football just because you think all your mates play football, but you don't actually like it, anything's quite a toxic environment, and you don't like the people you're doing it with, you're going to end up molding yourself into somebody who you don't end up liking. And I think it's really important to recognise who you are, what your values are, what you're passionate about, and the sort of environments and situations you should be in, and more importantly, what you shouldn't be in. And I think, you can start to navigate your life from there then.
Yeah. And what steps did you take to change your circle and the people around you, like your environment, to facilitate this and change your direction to the one that you wanted to take?
So, one of the communities I run is called Ideas and Beers. So the kind of main premise for Ideas and Beers is helping education, so helping people to learn and to be more educated, self-development and community. So there's the three kind of pillars of it. So that was something literally me and two friends having a couple of drinks. We thought these sorts of conversations that we were having that night need to happen on a bigger scale, and we ended up creating Ideas and Beers from it. So we host monthly events, and been doing that for 2.5 years. Did a podcast for it as well. So the reason that's relevant to your question is I was meeting people here and everywhere from different walks of life who I was able to have conversations with about self-development, about technology, about all of these different things which I found interesting. Whereas, quite a lot of my friends from school, they're all amazing guys, but I think I struggled to connect at that deeper level with them in terms of those sorts of conversations. We'd be speaking about going out, we'd be speaking about football and things like that, and that's not necessarily things that I'm interested in. So when I started meeting these people, I thought, oh my God, I walk away feeling energized, that sort of feeling. You just we meet someone, you're like, oh my God, and you're just motivated to do something, whatever it is. And I think I just started meeting more people like that. They were all dotted around, and I was like, okay, we need to bring them all together, and that's kind of what started my journey with connecting people, I'd say. And hope that answers the question.
Do you want to give your podcast a little shout out?
Yeah. So it's just on YouTube. It's the Ryan Stevens podcast, but I haven't done one in a while, but I am going to kick it back up soon. So.
Okay, cool.
No, I think that's really important what you've mentioned, because I think for us, one thing, we work with young people trying to set up their own businesses, for example, and one thing that we're really keen on is creating this sort of supportive network where we bring together like-minded individuals, because again, your environment is everything, and they say your network is your net worth, isn't it? So I think that's just such an important thing that you've just highlighted there. So just moving on to sort of the mindset element, how have you trained personally, and also just I guess in your work, trained your subconscious and just change your self-belief system to match with whatever it is that you're doing right now?
It's a long road. It is a long road, and I think everybody's always got more work to do. I think in terms of ourselves. I think as soon as we think, I've got it all figured out, no, there's always work to be done in terms of okay, how do I respond in this situation? How do I react if someone does this? And I think for me, when it comes to your question there in terms of self-belief and training my subconscious mind, just to react better in situations, I've always been good at analysing things, so I think you could say I'm an overthinker to an extent. I think a lot of people will relate to this. If you think quite a lot about stuff, you can make yourself quite stressed or quite anxious or unhappy, I think, because you're like, oh my God, why did I say that? You know, why did I do that? Oh, I should have said this instead. And you start to kick yourself, I think, for doing things. But what's good about being an overthinker is you can analyse things right the way across the board, like, and just think of all of the different things you could have done better, and then go, okay, well, I know that I didn't respond as good as I could have in this situation. This is why I know that, and these are particular sort of responses which could be better. So I'm going to do that next time. You know, and I think being an overthinker is good in that respect because you're able to just analyse and then respond in better ways going forward. So to touch upon the self-belief side of it, very challenging, you know, because you've got to almost look back at all of those things that people said to you in school when you were getting bullied. You've got to look at all of the stuff maybe parents said and things like that, which, you know, all mould how you view yourself. And I think you've got to try and figure out, okay, well, this person in school said X, Y, and Z about me. Why, you know, why does that offend me? Why is that? Is it true? Is there any basis for that? Why have they said it? You know, have they got stuff going on themselves? And I think what you find is when people have said things to you like that, it's reflecting, yeah, they're projecting out their own sort of insecurities, their own issues on you. I think when you realise that, you can start to forgive people for how they've reacted to you. And when you forgive somebody, you're not holding resentment against them, and also you're disregarding them what they've said, because you realise, okay, well, they said this about me, but they did it under these circumstances, so should I actually listen to it? Does it add value to my life? That's one good question to ask yourself, actually. If you're holding a particular belief about yourself, ask, okay, is this true? Where does it come from? If I hold on to this belief, does it serve me or does it drag me down? And I think if the answer is the latter, so it's dragging you down and it doesn't serve you, you've got to go, okay, so where did it originate from? It originated from my father, and he said X, Y, and Z, okay. And you can start to break it down and take away the power, I think is the key way of looking at it. When you take away the power from something, it ceases to have a hold over you. It's the same thing with bullies, actually. If somebody says something hurtful to you and you don't respond with anger, you kind of go, oh yeah, you're right, actually. So let's say you've wrote a book, okay, and you know, someone says, I read your book, it was terrible. You go, do you know what, yeah, you should see my other book. It's even worse. And that's a really powerful thing, and I can think when it comes to self-belief, if you can do the same thing, follow the same model, that's something I think that's helped me, is just dispelling those misbeliefs, if that's the right way to put it.
And finding evidence towards it, because I think a lot of the time when it comes to you having low self-belief, is we're telling ourselves all of these things, but there's nothing tangible that's there to actually prove the situation. So if you can, you know, write a list of, okay, what's actually proving that I am this person, you'll find nothing there. And I think that's also one way to sort of just combat that.
Absolutely, and like you touched on a great point there, writing it down, because overthinking is, you know, it can be quite destructive. So getting it all on paper, writing it all down outside of your brain, you know, you're almost able to look at it objectively then. You're thinking of all this stuff, you're getting it on paper, so you're starting to clear your mind of all those thoughts, so it's slowing the rate of thoughts that are coming through, which is, you know, going to essentially make you less likely to be anxious, but also you can look back at the paper and see it objectively about what's come out of your brain and make sense of it in a different way. It's almost like, you know, you're pulling the pieces of the puzzle out and then you're starting to mould them together then in front of you. So, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
One thing though as well that's been coming out at me while shouting really as you've been speaking about your story is resilience. Just your ability to just bounce back, you know, from all this adversity, you know, from school to you going to prison, all of these different things. Do you think that's something that was just intrinsic? You've always been this kind of person, or there's something, you know, you had to do to become this person?
I would say intrinsically, definitely. I think it is something, I've always had this drive to do more and to, you know, to achieve more, to be more, and I would say a way of encapsulating that is I've always felt this higher sense of purpose for my life, and I've never known what it is, you know, up until probably quite recently, where I've started to kind of get more of an idea of what that is, that purpose. You know, and I think most people's purposes, realistically, when you work it out, is to serve others, you know, to help others in some way, to, you know, light people up and that kind of stuff. And I think intrinsically, yeah, it's always been there in that respect. So when I've had these setbacks, I've had to just look at it and go, you know, with the prison scenario, for example, I remember on day one I walked in there and I sat down and went, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? And the thoughts that were coming through were, I've messed everything up, I've let my family down, I've let my friends down, I'm never going to go to Australia, I'm never going to America, I'm never going to be able to, you know, get these different, you know, different jobs or whatever, my life's over. You know, all of these different sort of existential thoughts, you know, were coming through. But then another thought came through, which was, do any of these serve you? You thinking about all these different things right now, is that going to serve you right now in this moment? And I thought, okay, it's not, can't. So I chose to make another thought instead, and you know, another thought came through, if you like, and that was, I'm going to do whatever I can today, like I was saying earlier, to just be that little bit better tomorrow. Just be that 1% better and accept what I can't change, which is, if I can't go to Australia, I can't go to Australia. You know, if I can't go to America, I can't go to America. But right now I'm in this scenario, so I can't go to any of them. But, you know, accept what you can't change and figure out what you can change and what you can do. And when you look at that, when you look at the things that are in your power, you're giving yourself power, you know, you're giving yourself that power to figure out what the answers are and what you need to do, rather than just sort of sitting in the corner going, oh my God, I can't do anything, you know, the world's ending and, you know, I don't know where to turn. Because that's how I was initially. And then as soon as I made that decision, it kind of changed everything, because my outlook, I was looking for things to lift me up, essentially, and drive me in the direction I wanted to go in. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's really important. Just not be fixated in whatever you are in right now and things that you can't change, because then what? So I really love that.
At what point do you think in your life you realise that actually I can take everything that I know within my own mindset to help others and start coaching others?
So I've always found that people have come to me for advice for things. So I naturally, I think I've always tried giving people, you know, advice, like if they've come to me or if they've said they've got an issue, I've always tried helping them with it, like just you know, that's always been ingrained in me. So when I was working for Swansea University, I started helping people with their, you know, business ideas and setting up, helping them set the business up. And I thought, okay, this is kind of closely aligned with what I like doing. I like the idea of working with people here to move them forward professionally. But a few years prior to that, after leaving prison, I got a job working in the substance misuse sector for a while, for about a year, and I was helping people with, you know, severe depression, anxiety, as well as substance misuse or dual diagnosis, which is both. I went back into the prisons delivering courses then as well, which was quite interesting. But I didn't really enjoy that side of it, because I found that really drained me mentally and made me a lot more anxious and things like that. And I found it was very challenging to keep up. Whereas when I worked at Swansea Uni, it's a different end of the spectrum, but it's helping people professionally. And I thought, I think I almost kind of went, oh, I got to meet somewhere in the middle here, you know. I want to meet someone in the middle. I want to be helping people who are, you know, in a bit of a sticky situation and want to, you know, find a way out of it, but I also want to help people to get from where they are there and move them forward, you know, professionally, and help them live, you know, a better life in some way. So I think that's pretty much, you know, the moment I started to realise, you know, okay, this is what I need to be doing, because I thought I'm always helping people and giving people advice and stuff, and it's just like, okay, how can I make an income out of this? How can I make a life out of this? And it kind of went from there, really.
So following on from that, how did you get yourself to a place where you were ready to sort of, you know, be pouring into others in the way that you do now as a mindset and accountability coach? And also, again, off the back of that, if you've ever suffered from imposter syndrome, and how you sort of dealt with that along the years?
I mean, I would say that I still suffer from imposter syndrome, 100%. You know, I think most people do when they go out on their own. I think you have days where you go, what the hell am I doing? You know, and you really start to question that. So yeah, to answer the first part of the question, I mean, when I was going out initially to do it, it was really daunting. Okay, I was quitting a job at Swansea University, which was a top university, a really good job and well paid as well, during lockdown, to go self-employed and no real backing, literally like last month's pay, and I just thought this is what I need to do. The last job wasn't serving me, and I just knew I needed to do this. I had no idea how it was going to work. I came up with a plan, but I thought this is a bit of a fluid plan, it's like just gives me a bit of an idea of what I'm going to try and make from this. But I pretty much, it was this, I would say it was like this innate feeling. I was like, I know this is the right decision to make. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but this is the direction I need to go in. And I took a leap of faith with it, a big leap of faith, to be fair. And I wouldn't say necessarily for other people to always willy-nilly go and do the same sort of thing. I think it's, yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah.
But I did it and made the change, and I did pick up like odd jobs, like here and there, just for like extra cash and stuff like that, whilst building up the business. But then I started marketing it, started putting it out there, and at the time, like I said, it was well, going back a little bit, when I was in university, just before I quit, I did start doing some free coaching stuff for some people, just to see what sort of structure I can put in place and what sort of value they would take from the sessions as well. That was more for me to know if I can do it or not, if this is something that is going to work. But I was pulling upon all of the different qualifications, experience and stuff I'd learned, and I thought, okay, yeah, this works. This seems to be working. This seems to be helping people, and I enjoy doing it. And yeah, when I had my first client, then that was when I was like, I have a business. I have a concept which works. Because until you have customers, you don't have a business. And as soon as I had that first client, I thought, great, now I poured into that, and I thought, right, I'm going to do everything I can here to make sure that this person gets the outcomes that they want from the coaching. And it kind of just went from there, really. But once you have the first one, it gives you that sort of boost, especially if you get feedback and things as well, and you can see the changes they're making in their life. I think that's the key thing, is with this kind of coaching, when you see people making massive changes, you couldn't write down outcomes on a bit of paper, but when you see the changes, them leaving a toxic relationship, for example, or they find some a partner that they really are on board with, and is bringing them happiness, for example, or just giving them the confidence to actually approach people in that respect, or giving them the confidence to leave their job and go and find somewhere else, or just set up their own business. There's any number of different things. When you see that, that's when you're like, okay, this seems to be working, because they'll usually verbalize it as well. They'll usually say what you've done, which they value, and I find that's, when coming back to imposter syndrome, you've got to look at those sorts of that feedback, that input from other people, and also what your outcomes are yourself, and think, okay, I can't be an imposter because this is making a difference. This is helping people, and I think that's kind of how I deal with it, really.
What would you say keeps you motivated? Like, what is it exactly that draws your energy?
Anyone who knows me would say that I have like too much energy. Too much energy is the term they use. I always, I do have days where I've got lower energy, and things like that. I think what I'm good at doing is looking at it and going, okay, what have I done differently today? Have I not drank enough water? Did I drink last night? Did I, have too much sugar and I'm having a sugar crash? Have I drank too much caffeine or not enough? So I look at it from like a biological standpoint, and to do with sunlight as well. Have I been out in the sun? Like, when's the last time I was out in the sun? Exercise, movement, have I not moved today? I kind of look at that first and then go, oh, okay, I could do that, that's better. If all of those things are kind of all fine, usually I find that my energy levels are quite good and quite sustainable. But in terms of like energy to put it, or mental energy to put in projects, I would say now my energy comes from just loving the process of it. I just really enjoy being busy, being active, and doing things that feel like I'm moving forward in some way. Like, I think what it comes down to is progress. A lot of people well, there's a quote actually, I don't know where this is from, but it says progress equals happiness. Okay, and that's always really resonated with me, because when I'm progressing, I feel happy, and I think a lot of people could probably resonate with that. If you are, you know, getting towards the end of a university degree and you know that you're about to get that degree, that is progress in itself, and I think that gives you that sense of happiness, because it's like, okay, well, I'm progressing here, I'm moving forward. Or when you get a job, you know, there are obviously different events which are having that sort of, you know, they're producing dopamine, the feel-good chemical, because you've achieved something, but it's also progress in itself. And I think when you sit in a job that, you know, just going by and, you know, it's okay, you know, you don't mind it, but you're not really going and learning new stuff, you're not really trying new things out and stuff, we almost become stagnant. And I think what I've always really been good at is constantly staying, you know, keep moving forward, constantly progressing and trying to, and I think that in itself is where I draw my energy from, and having fun while I do it as well. I think that's, and you've got to have fun with what you're doing, you've got to be playful and enjoy it, otherwise it will become boring, it will become, you know, a bit stagnant. And I think, yeah, if you can be playful throughout your life into later life, you're just going to enjoy everything much better, be happier whilst you're doing it, and achieve more long term.
If you could put it down to like one thing that motivates you, because I know like even me, like I find it quite hard to stay motivated from like a day-to-day basis sometimes, and it's like, what do you look at, like if it could be one thing that really motivates you?
One thing?
Or a couple.
Okay, I mean, well, with motivation, there's two different types, isn't there? So you've got intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is a quote that pops up on Instagram. You can do it. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, it will. I think the way to look at it is it's starting the engine, but you've still got to put fuel in. You know, and I think the fuel really is the intrinsic stuff. You know, it's what keeps you going longer term. Whereas the extrinsic is just that initial thing to get you started, and that could even be feedback. You know, so someone says, "Oh my God, you know, you've really helped me with X, Y, and Z." Okay, that's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that. You know, that's still something that's extrinsic. If you're constantly relying on it and it's not coming through, that motivation is going to drop. Whereas the intrinsic is value based. So, what am I passionate about? What do I value? What's my purpose? You know, where can I see myself going? And I think when you know these sorts of really deep, introspective things about yourself, your motivation comes from there. So if you're not, let's use the gym as an example. If you don't like the gym, you're not going to be motivated to go, right? You know, I don't like the gym anymore. I used to like it. Now I can't motivate myself to go because I don't enjoy it. Whereas yoga, I'll jump out of bed for. Going in the sea and, you know, swimming or doing a dip, jump out of bed for. Running, you know, doing a, like longer distance stuff or pushing myself in that respect, I'll jump out of bed for about. I can motivate myself to do it all. I wouldn't say jump out of bed specifically for running. You know, I think if you find those things that you really enjoy, whether it's stuff like that, physical based things, or just things you want to engage in, like, you know, a job or a project you want to, you know, actually achieve, you know, work on and achieve, or a degree even. When they're things that you're passionate about and you enjoy, it's much easier to be motivated because it's intrinsic. You've got values or passions or interests which are aligned to it.
I think that's the key thing here, just consistency, not only with, you know, like the physical examples you've given, but just your mindset, and you just training little habits basically. I think consistency is key with everything, and you did touch on it briefly, but if you can go a little bit more into that would be great.
Yeah, so I love consistency. Okay, so there's a book first of all I'm going to recommend, which is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. So that's a really good book, because it's not just about compounding within finance, but it's compounding about within anything in life in general. So consistency. So if you were to put let's say you start a business, you put a post up on social media, one post, you might get a like from, you know, a family member or a friend or something like that. Okay, and you go, oh, this is not working. You know, and you don't do it again. Whereas if you were to post every single day or every week for a year and a half, those likes are going to go from 1 to 50 or 100 or something per post, and you go, okay, you know, it's coming through. Might seem slow, but if you were to keep doing it every single day, by the end of 3 or 4 years, you might be having hundreds of thousands of likes on it. You know, the build up, the consistency happens over time. It's very incremental, but people want it overnight,
Yes.
and that comes down to results as well. People want they want something right now. They want to go, okay, I want to get fitter. And you go for one run. Oh my God, I'm so unfit. I'm never going to be able to do this.
But it's the society I think we live in right now. Just
100%.
things happening instantly.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, it is. It's got a big part to play, and I think we are responsible for reversing that and thinking, okay, society's telling me that I can have something today, but I know that this is going to take a bit longer, and I'm willing to enjoy the process of it. You've got to really enjoy the process of doing things. Otherwise, it's hard to maintain it. It's hard to stay consistent with it. So I mean, yeah, talking to somebody is one of the key things that I think you can do. So you're not going to obviously talk to, in my instance, now I'm not going to talk to my clients about my own problems, because then they're coming to me for help. I can't be unloading my stuff onto them. But that doesn't mean that you should disregard it as well. No, I think if you've got something that's really affected you emotionally, in my instance, I'll speak to a client and say, are we alright to reschedule and just change things? Because I can't deliver the energy, and the service and the help that they're looking for if I'm going to be constantly thinking about my own things. And I think you've got to have that support network next to you already for you to rely on as well. So people have asked me that, some of the people I've helped, or just people I'm friends with in general. They say, like, how are you able to just sort of unload yourself, because they say you take on everyone else's problems, how do you deal with yours? So journaling is one of them. I do journal every now and again, and I write things down, especially if it's things that have really affected me, but mostly talking to other people. That's one of the key ones. So I'll unload, and they'll help me make sense of things then objectively and deal with it, or just vent. And then physical exertion as well. So like if I've got something that's really like annoyed me or affected me emotionally, I tend to go out and do something stupid like an ultra marathon. I've done it before. I think I went through a bit of a thing with a relationship, and the next day I went, right, I'm going to run a barefoot ultra marathon, and I went out and run 30 miles barefoot. So yeah, that was a probably a silly thing to do, but at the same time for me that was unleashing that energy, or like letting out that energy and that emotion. But it was mostly then giving myself that boost. So I'm like, okay, I've gone and done something that's really challenging physically and mentally, and the overcoming of that, then it lifts me back up and it keeps me motivated. So I think that's probably how I deal with setbacks, is I pour into something else, and usually a physical sort of thing, and let it out.
I guess you've briefly touched on it, but how do you take care of yourself in other ways? How do you relax? How do you just recharge in general? What's your self-care sort of routine?
Sea dipping in the morning. So like every morning, 9 times out of 10, I'm down there first thing. I love going to see a sunrise. I think everybody should be trying to experience sunrises or sunsets as much as possible, and actually being in nature amongst it. Because you've got your physical, your mental, and your spiritual well-being, and I think most people try and deal with the first two, the mental and physical, but the spiritual not so much. And I think that comes down to things like meditation, for example, being in nature, seeing sunrises, sunsets, being next to the sea or in the sea and in the natural elements. Those are all sorts of spiritual practices for me, I think, and irregardless of if you're religious or not, because I'm not. That is a spiritual practice. It's something that helps you feel connected. And I think that's definitely one sort of thing I would say that I do with being in nature and the sea. Meditation, I do it a little bit, not always, but I try and do it quite often. I stretch before bed most nights, again not every night, but I'll just get down, do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I'll usually burn incense or a candle or something while I'm doing it, so it kind of like calms me down, chills me out. My sleep goes really, really good after I've done that. I notice the difference from when I haven't. Spending time with people I enjoy being with, and a big one for me is solitude, because I'm around so many people all the time and constantly trying to give off that energy. When I actually go and spend time by myself, I can be around people, but just not people that I'm closely connected with in that sense. So like if I go camping, for example, like I am this weekend, I'm going to be around people, but I can actually go inwards and spend time in the tent by myself and read or just go for a walk or go for a run on my own, and I feel like I get back to myself when I do that. So I think but it's very individual. I think any person listening to this or watching, go and find what it is that you find value in, or things that you enjoy, and bring you a sense of peace. I think everybody's got them, it's just we don't recognise them sometimes. Write them down. Okay, what calms me down? What brings me a sense of peace? What makes me happy or brings me a sense of joy? That could be simple things, it could be going for a walk, going on the beach, seeing my grandchildren or seeing my grandparents, petting a dog. That's one thing for me. When I go to the beach in the mornings, there's always loads of dogs, and I'm always making a fuss of them, and it's great. It's a wonderful way to start the day.
So just get a dog now.
Yeah.
Get a dog, yeah.
That's the next step.
Yeah. So it's just find those individual little things, and this is something we touched on before the podcast. Find a sense of gratitude for those things. I think for me, watching the sun come up over the water, the colour on the water, and even through the winter as well, when there's a cold breeze on the air or there's frost on the sand, just take it all in and be appreciative of it, because you're only there once, you're only in that moment once. And that's what I would say for that, is just find those individual things that bring you a sense of joy, bring you happiness or a sense of calm, and just try and do more of that and less of the stuff you don't like, and that won't happen overnight. You just got to chip away at it.
Love it.
We're all largely aware of the importance of our mindset in changing our lives and pushing ourselves, but what would you say stops us from being able to make those necessary changes?
Ourselves. We are, without a doubt, the biggest obstacle in the way of our own growth. And I think we touched upon this earlier. It's the things that have happened to us, or the things that people have said about us, in our lives, or the people that we still maybe surround ourselves with. They're all factors in our the way that we perceive life and go about each day right now. But we're able to change that. We're in control of it. There's a quote, I can't remember who it's by, but it's, "You are the captain of your fate, the master of your soul."
Okay.
Yeah, might have got that wrong. But if you type in "captain of your fate" quote, it'll come up. And I think essentially what they're trying to say with that quote is you're in charge of, what happened. You're not in charge of the things that happen to you, always, but you are in charge of how you respond to them.
Yeah.
And I think that is one key thing, is just go out there and just try and make sense of things as best you can, but don't be hung up on the things that you can't change. Just remain, or just figure out what it is in your control, and just focus on that, really.
And I really hope those who are listening out there, I really hope this has helped you. Hope that you grabbed pen and paper and jotted out all the important things that really stuck with you in this episode. I'd say for me, what stuck with me was even the first question. Your story, I think, is just so incredible and inspiring, and how you really from school to now, how little things affected you, but then you decided to change your whole mindset and change the way that you go about things in life. It is really inspiring.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What stuck out to you, Kim?
Well, for me, I think it's just hard to pick one now, but you've spoken a lot about values, and then just drawing that out in every single thing that you do, really. So I think for me, that's just the key thing, just in everything that you do, be it a job that you're going to choose to take, a business you're going to choose to start, whatever it may be, align it with your personal values. So I think, that's a gem. So I think this conversation with Ryan has been really important, especially to us in the work that we do. Obviously, we're working with people, helping them get into jobs, into education, whatever it may be. But the important thing here is, before you are able to access any of those opportunities, you need to get your mindset right and work on your intrinsic self first. So it's just a really important thing to highlight to everyone who's listening and watching.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know what organisation we're talking about, it's the CAE. So guys, this is the first of 3 episodes that will focus on how to live out your lives as the best version of yourself. This being a person who is healed from heart, self-aware and whole as an individual.
Thank you very much. That's very kind words. And just to finish, podcast rated number 1 is the 411.
Till next time, guys. Bye.